Hey y'all, welcome to another edition of Kenny's Kantina, Eating in Style on the Road. Today's show is coming to you from Alaska. I cheated and flew up here and left my RV back in Pennsylvania. A great friend of mine, Peter, is getting married and invited me to be a groomsman. So here I am in a beautiful location, and this time of year it never gets dark. When I flew in, my buddy said we would go to dinner. It ends up we drove to the other side of the airport, Lake Hood float plane base, and hopped into his float plane. We flew to a picturesque lake about 60 miles from Anchorage and fired up a campfire and grill on the beach. This is definitely the way to see Alaska. Peter put me to work cooking the brats. The scenery on the way and back was gorgeous, and we counted about 15 bears as we flew at 500 feet. We landed back at Lake Hood around midnight to a beautiful sunset. The busy week here in Alaska with the bachelor party, a mellow affair, a cookout for friends and family, rehearsal and rehearsal dinner, wedding and beach barbecue in Whittier the day after the wedding. The bachelor party did not quite go as planned. We're going to whitewater raft. But when we got there, we found out we'd start the day with a 10-minute swim in 36-degree water. And we weren't dressed for that occasion. So off to a great breakfast and hanging out with cigars and cocktails before a great dinner at Ryan's, one of the groomsmen's house. I played grill man, and Ryan made specialty cocktails and appetizers and sides. I cooked king crab on the grill, my favorite way to prepare it, along with steaks and asparagus. Peter had mentioned the cookout for family and friends, and I offered to take care of the cooking, and he jumped on the chance. I asked him what he had in mind. He said he thought hamburgers and hot dogs. I said, how about shredded beef tacos and a big pot of charro beans? A smile came on his face, and the plan was set. So, do you need to feed an army at your campsite? Or in my case, an easy dinner for 20 wedding guests? I have the solution for you. Kenny's Shredded Beef Taco Party. A slow oven-cooked brisket is your answer. This is an easy recipe that just takes oven time. It's one of the most popular dishes that I serve for parties. Shredded beef is not only good for tacos, but also great for hot beef sandwiches. You can also make it ahead of time and heat it up on the day of the party. This dish is so good and so easy to make. Charro or Mexican cowboy beans are a great side dish to go with it. I'll cook up the charro beans in a future episode. Let's get started here. So prep time for this dish is about 20 minutes. Cooking time, 5 hours, and it serves 15 to 20 depending on the size of the brisket. You can store this for a week in the refrigerator, any leftovers, or 6 months in the freezer. So ingredients, you want a 10 to 12 pound brisket with the fat cap on, coarse salt, coarse black pepper, cumin, 4 tablespoons of minced garlic, 1.5 large sweet onion, a turkey-size oven bag. That's all you need. Not a lot to this one. For preparation, what you want to do is set out the brisket and let it reach room temperature. And then what we're going to want to do is preheat the oven to 340 degrees. Okay, so then the next step in this process is to unwrap the brisket from the vacuum sealed package. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to dry off the brisket, tapping it. Let me flip this over. What it's going to do is the salt and pepper and cumin are going to stick to it much better. Okay, let me put that so the fat's up, and then I'm going to want to trim a little bit of the fat off. I'm going to leave a good chunk of the fat, but you don't want it overly fatty. So I'm going to trim a little bit of that off, still leaving all the top of the meat covered. We're good to go there. Now I'm going to take it and put the fat side down. I'm going to cover the bottom side with my spices before I get going here. Now I'm going to take the coarse salt. Now you notice in this recipe, I don't have measurements for a tablespoon of salt or whatever. What we're going to do is we're going to cover each side of the brisket with the spices. So I'm going straight from the shaker in this. So first off, let me take the coarse salt and shake this on it, getting a good cover, right? I've got a good cover of salt on it. You get the pepper. And we're going to shake the pepper. Here again, I'm just making sure I have good coverage over the brisket. All right. And then the cumin. Same process here. Let's shake this over to get a good coverage on the brisket. Okay. We're covered good. So the brisket's all well covered. Now I'm going to take my minced garlic, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of the minced garlic on, and then I'm going to take a spoon here and just kind of spread that around some. So we've got that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some cellophane wrap, and I'm going to cover the bottom of this brisket before I flip it over. That way when I flip it, you don't lose some of your spice and garlic to your cutting board. Okay, let me flip that. So now we've got the fat side up, and we're going to do the same process. So let's start with the salt again. Good coverage. Set that down. Pick up the pepper and cover that. All right, we got good coverage. And the cumin. In each of these, just the salt, pepper, and cumin are really going to add a lot of flavor. You're not going to be able to really taste the salt and the pepper and the cumin, but it's going to, once it's slow cooked, it's really going to feed into the overall flavor. We need our 2 tablespoons of garlic on this side as well. So there's 1, 2, and I'm going to spread that around. Now, the only other ingredient in this is onions. And so I'm going to take my onions and slice them in half. Just slice these onions into about 1/4 inch slices. Okay. All right. Now, the next step is I'm going to use that oven bag. And I like to use the oven bag because what it's going to do is it's going to hold in all the juices, and that meat is just going to stew in the juices, and the bag's going to help hold the steam in, and that's going to really tenderize up the meat. So I'm going to open up the bag, and I'm going to take half of the onions and spread those around in the inside of the bag. Okay. And then I'm going to take the brisket with the fat side up. You want that fat when it renders to drip through the meat. You pick this up and take it off that cellophane from the bottom and slide it in the bag here. It's kind of a balancing act with the weight of the brisket. Okay, the leftover whatever garlic came off on that cellophane, I'm going to throw in there. And then I'm going to take the remaining onion and reach in and sprinkle that on top of the brisket. All right. Now let me seal off the bag. Oven bags come with a tie, so let me twist the end here. Put the tie on it. Now I'm going to place this in a roasting pan. Then I'm going to take my knife, and I'm just going to cut 2 or 3 slits in top of that oven bag, and that's going to let some of the steam escape so the bag doesn't blow up in there. We are ready. Oven's at temperature, and slide this in. And I'm going to set the timer on this for 4 hours, and that's it. Now, if you're using an RV oven, what you're going to want to do is every hour rotate that pan around so that you for sure get even cooking over the entire brisket. So we're going to let that cook for 4 hours, and then we'll check it. So while that brisket's in the oven, you've got plenty of time to prepare the charro beans or any other sides or appetizer for the party. Today, I'm whipping up some of my 2-minute salsa, which is from episode 1 of season 1, and some guacamole, also from season 1, episode 11. And then I'm going to make some pico de gallo, which will be for a future episode. The nice thing about these appetizers is that they also double for toppings on top of the shredded beef tacos. And I even had time to cook up some breakfast tacos from season 1 and episode 2 for the couple of the groomsmen that are staying here at Peter's house. So I'm going to work on that, and we will check back in 4 hours. It's been 4 hours, so I'm going to now check the doneness of the meat. Let me get this out of the oven. Ooh, that's smelling so good. The house has been smelling great the last 4 hours. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fork and kind of poke through one of the slits that I cut in the bag and see how easy the fork slides into the meat. Right now, it's getting there, but it doesn't slide super easy all the way through. So what I'm going to do is set the timer for another hour. So we'll check back in. Okay, the timer is going off and an hour is done. Let me kill this timer. Oh man, let me get the brisket out of the oven. Set it up here. Shut that oven. All right, so now we're going to test it again like we did before. I'm going to take the fork. Okay, great. Okay, now that I'm pushing it in, the meat is actually shredding as I'm pushing it in, and it's soft all the way through the brisket. There's no resistance. So we're good. It's done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut open the bag. Let me peel that back. And what I'm doing is I'm letting some of that heat out. And then I'm going to let this rest for 10 minutes. So that'll help it to cool down some. It'll help to start getting some of those juices back in the meat. So let's check back in a few minutes. So I've let the meat rest for 10 minutes, and it's time to remove the bag and start shredding. Let me get the bag. With it cut open, it's kind of easy to just bring it out one side. All right, let me set that aside. Okay, and then I'm going to take 2 forks. If you have meat claws, you can use meat claws for shredding. But with the meat being well cooked, it shreds pretty easy. I just run with the grain of the meat and just kind of do my forks in opposite directions, and that meat separates really well. So for me, parties are a great way to share meals with friends and family. I like to prepare dishes that are pretty much complete prior to the guests showing up. This gives me time to enjoy my guests. The shredded beef is great for that. So for some other great party dishes, well, I'm shredding here. So for some other great parties, dishes to feed the masses, check out season 1 of episode 6 for my shrimp boil. In season 1, episode 9, I cook up gumbo, which is perfect for easily serving a lot of people. And in season 2, episode 3, I feed the RV park crowd with my Texas red chili. All these dishes are great for large parties, and they give you time to enjoy your guests. The bulk of all the prep and cooking is done ahead of time. All right, so I'm just about done here. Here we go. I got all the meat shredded. I'm going to take a big spoon and kind of mix the meat in with that juice, get it all nice and covered. Grab a fork and give this a taste. Whoa, that is so good. What a great meat flavor. The slow cooking makes the brisket so tender and a perfect blend of spices. This is so rich. Let me grab another little bite. Oh, guys, that's good. Boy, the guests are going to really enjoy that. Now what I'm going to do is we've got a little bit of time before the guests arrive, so I'm going to tear off some aluminum foil and cover the pan, and that'll help keep the meat and all warm before we serve it. So it's time to fill the plates and have a party. The great thing about preparing shredded beef tacos for the party is that all the work is done beforehand. And as hosts, you get to enjoy the party. Shredded beef tacos and charro beans were a great success. There's not much left of either. I love well-fed guests. So some serving recommendations. First off, you can do like we did today and make tacos with the shredded beef. You can also serve this on a bun for a really tasty sandwich. It also makes great French dip sandwiches. And the shredded beef on a loaded baked potato is really a great meal in and of itself. For breakfast, you can add some of this beef into scrambled eggs and really spice up and flavor your eggs. Another great meal, you could make a taco salad or a beef salad out of this. And my latest, greatest one that I really like is to use this meat to make birria tacos. Sneak preview, this tasty dish will be my next episode and a great way to use any leftover shredded beef. So some tips. Having the brisket at room temperature prior to cooking makes for a more even cooking of the brisket. And I do this with any meats I cook, whether it's on the grill in the oven. I always bring the meat to room temperature before I start cooking. Now, drying the brisket with a paper towel before applying the spices will help to make the spices adhere better to the meat. You can also apply the spices the night before cooking if you have the refrigerator space, and this will allow the spices to get into the meat even more. And that oven bag keeps all the steam and juices from the meat dish close to the brisket, which really enhances the flavor of the meat. Now, you can purchase a smaller brisket if you're not feeding as many people. Adjust the cooking time based on the size of the brisket. You can check it often to make sure on the cooking that it's getting done. Now, cooking the brisket fat side up allows that fat to render through the meat and is really going to enhance the flavor of the meat. Now, the other thing you can do is you can cook this shredded beef a day or two ahead of time, and then you can reheat it and serve it in the crock pot. I've done this several times. Now, when I put it in the crock pot, I like to add some beef stock into the pot when I reheat it. Just make sure that the meat doesn't dry out while you're cooking. So enjoy your shredded beef. Just to let y'all know, the wedding was held in south of Anchorage at Gerwood at a ski resort and lodge, and what a beautiful setting for a wedding. And Victoria, the bride, was beautiful. After the ceremony, we rode a tram to the top of the ski mountain for wedding pictures, and what a backdrop for pictures. So congratulations to Peter and Victoria. I wish you the best in your future life together. Now, the day after the wedding, several of us joined Peter and Victoria in Whittier for an informal barbecue on the beach, and what a great place to visit. Whittier's this wonderful little fishing village that you have to drive through a train tunnel to get to by car. There's glaciers around, and it's a gorgeous afternoon. So be sure to put Whittier on your list of places to see in Alaska. Now for one of the favorite parts of my show, it's mail time. Today I'm answering questions that came out of my Thai coconut pineapple chicken stir fry recipe. Yes, that's a mouthful. There were some great questions. First off, Tom from Maryland asked, Kenny, I prefer to marinate my chicken before I make up your dish. I think marinating adds way more flavor to any dish. How long can I marinate my chicken before it gets too mushy? Hey, Tom, marinating the chicken ahead of time will add to the flavor. As to the time, I would say you could marinate it the night before and leave it in the fridge. This will definitely add more flavor to the chicken. Thanks for your question, Tom. Now, Connie from Florida asks, can other meats such as pork or shrimp be a good substitute for your dish? Would other spices or ingredients need to be changed in order not to take away from the flavors that you have incorporated with the chicken dish? So, Connie, substitute away. I switch out shrimp for chicken on several dishes. Now, I don't eat a lot of pork, but there are Thai dishes made with pork, so it should work great. I wouldn't change any of the other ingredients. The coconut and the pineapple work well with shrimp and pork. So thanks for your question, and keep watching, Connie. Janet from California asked, I am a vegetarian, and I'd like to know if I left out meat for your dish, should I keep the same ingredients? What would it taste like? I would think I'd have to leave the coconut out of the dish. What are your thoughts? Janet, it's good to hear from you. As you can tell, I'm not a vegetarian, but I see no problem leaving meat out of the dish. I'd not change any of the ingredients. I think the coconut and pineapple are at the heart of the flavoring for the stir fry. So thanks for the question, Janet, and I'll try to have more non-meat recipes in the future. Now, Tammy from Wisconsin asks, is there a reason outside the ease of preparation why you did not use fresh pineapple over canned? And why didn't you save the juices from the can? I think you would have saved them instead of pouring them down the drain. Tammy, you make some really good points. I do use canned pineapple for the ease of preparation. If you use fresh, I'd suggest adding it sooner in the cooking process, as it'll take a little longer to soften up than the canned pineapple. And Tammy, in all honesty, I did not even think of saving the juice. What a great idea. It'd be great in a rum cocktail or just for drinking. Thanks for calling my attention to this, Tammy. And keep watching, and from now on, I'm going to save the juice. Now, our next question comes from Dr. Martha Scott from Connecticut. This may be one you reach for just because of the familiarity of its name, but Thai foods is just as bad for you as Chinese foods. Made the way restaurants cook them is high in fat content and calories. Is the dish of yours also defined this way? Do you have a calorie count on your dish? I'm a nutrition, and through my studies of food, I've found that chicken Thai is one of the worst dishes you can order at a Thai restaurant. Thai cooks commonly use coconut oil, palm oil, peanut oil, soybean oil, and while coconut oil has some benefits, it's also high in saturated fats, which could be bad for your heart if you use it to excess. Dr. Scott, thank you for your comment and questions. I'm not a nutritionist, but I have started watching my calories to lose weight. So I use my calorie counting app to approximate the amount of calories in my dish. And I came up with 500 calories per serving. So the coconut milk, rice noodles, and the mambo sauce, where most of the calories come from. Can't speak to the fat content of the dish, but thanks for your insights, Dr. Scott, and please keep watching. Now, Nancy from Washington State wants to know, I know this question has nothing to do with your dish, but has a lot to do with rice. Is it true that if you want to make a good fried rice for dinner that day, old rice makes the best fried rice? Nancy, thanks for your question. From my experience and what I've read, the key to good fried rice is to use chilled rice. So either day-old rice or rice that's been refrigerated for a few hours would actually work best in the dish. So thanks for your question, Nancy. Well, we've come to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoy your shredded beef, and thanks to everyone for your questions. In my next episode, I'm going to take the shredded beef and make birria tacos. I kept seeing the birria taco craze on Instagram and thought my shredded beef would work great, and guess what? It does. The sauce is what makes the tacos great. I made a batch and gave a dozen away around the RV park, and all my tasters wanted the recipe. So due to popular demand, it will be coming up next. If you haven't tried them yet, you are in for a treat. They taste fabulous. And the accompanying sauce is great in a variety of ways. Also, what I like about creatively using leftovers is that it adds variety to the leftovers, so you're not eating the same thing over several days. So stay tuned for birria tacos and the creative use of leftovers. I want to send my congratulations again to Peter and Victoria on their wedding, and best of wishes for y'all in the future. I also want to thank my fellow groomsmen, Daniel, Ryan, Patrick, and Ryan, for a wonderful week in Alaska. You guys are great. Special thanks to Daniel, the best man, for the use of some of his pictures from the trip and his photography duties during the preparations of the shredded beef. Also, thanks to the family and friends that attended the cookout. It was great having y'all enjoy my shredded beef tacos and charro beans. Thanks for cooking with me on Kenny's Kantina. A big shout out to my sponsors, IBC Productions and the Road Hogs Media Network, for getting my shows out there. Don't forget to check my website for all my episodes and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. See y'all on the road.